Between the end of November and the beginning of 2023, there have been several conferences with titles like The Future of Something. If we just look at the month of January 2023, for example, we found topics like the future of work and the future of wellness that were discussed at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. The future of marketing and the future of retailing were discussed at the convention of the National Retail Federation. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, there were panels about the future of manufacturing, the future of work, and the future of industrial policies. Futurist and author Amy Webb was at Davos too in a panel discussing AI and quantum computing, but no reference was made to the potential of language models like ChatGPT. In fact, in none of these large events in January or February 2023, we heard of any reference to ChatGPT and the impact that it will have on all the topics we mentioned, from work to health, from manufacturing to creativity, and many more. Now the events too are catching up with ChatGPT. Some speakers have enthusiastic opinions.
I'm just going to say this. You've got to go home and try it. That's going to be a game changer for the economy. And like most changes in technology, with clear winners and losers. But this is going to be the future, and it's worth going home, signing into ChatGPT, open an account, and experiment for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and impress your grandchildren.
Some others are warning about the shortcomings, like the prominent keynote speakers at the World AI Festival that took place in Cannes, France in February 2023.
It does not know anything. If it can contradict itself about a simple fact that it states confidently and then states the opposite one sentence later, it does not know anything.
Performance is amazing, but those systems make very, very stupid mistakes a lot of the time. You may have heard Pascal Fang's talk yesterday, and she was talking about a paper that she wrote with her group at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, where they try to assess the performance of ChatGPT by measuring the percentage of the time it produces a correct answer or not to, kind of standard questions. And it's about 60% correct. So it's not that great. So large language models have enormous limitations. They have no knowledge of the underlying reality. They're trained on text. They don't know the world exists. And they have no idea they can't do any physical reasoning or geometric reasoning or anything like that because they've never been trained on anything of that type.
Even futurist Amy Webb put ChatGPT and language models at the center of her keynote presentation at South by Southwest. Those that worry about the shortcomings or try to predict the future of ChatGPT are part of a limited group of users that has had a chance to interact with ChatGPT way before it became public in November 2022, and even before Google CEO Sundar Pichai announced a similar language model called Lambda at the annual Google event in 2021. Paul R. Daugherty and H. James Wilson are global technology leaders with consulting firm Accenture, and as a team, they also write books and articles for Harvard Business Review. In one of these early articles published in 2020, they described the experience and the further research that they did regarding earlier version of ChatGPT. The two consultants analyzed basically all the occupational categories listed by the US government, which are about 73, and found that all of them will be impacted by applications like ChatGPT. Some tasks can be automated, the authors write, but the larger opportunity will be around augmenting and amplifying human productivity and ingenuity. For example, communication professionals will be able to automate work tasks that involve routine text generation. More critical communications like advertising, copy, and social media messages instead will be augmented by the ability of the bot to help develop lines of thought. Also, anybody using graphs or charts for scientific or business purposes will be able to speed up the design and the placement in PowerPoint presentations, for example. The possibilities across disciplines and industries are limited only by the imagination of the users. Companies should start experimenting with ChatGPT because there will be more bots based on natural language modeling that will enter the market, and the existing one will improve dramatically. Here is an overview of what to expect as presented by the creators themselves.
I think it's safe to assume that progress will continue and that we will keep on seeing systems which astound us in the things that they can do. And the current frontiers will be centered around reliability, around the system can be trusted, really get into a point where we can trust what it produces. Really get into a point where if it doesn't understand something, it asks for a clarification, says that it doesn't know something, says that it needs more information. I think those are perhaps the areas where improvement will lead to the biggest impact on the usefulness of those systems. Because right now, that's really what stands in the way. You ask a neural net to maybe summarize some long document, and you get a summary. Like, are you sure that some important detail wasn't omitted? It's still a useful summary, but it's a different story when you know that all the important points have been covered. At some point, and in particular, it's okay, even there is ambiguity, it's fine, but if a point is clearly important, such that anyone else who saw that point would say, this is really important, when the neural network will also recognize that reliably, that's when you know. Same for the guardrail, same for its ability to clearly follow the intent of the user, of its operator. So I think we'll see a lot of that in the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's terrific, because the progress in those two areas will make this technology trusted by people to use and be able to apply it for so many things.
As for Greg Brockman, one of the co-founders of OpenAI, in the future he thinks ChatGPT will be more ambitious, capable of solving more difficult tasks. Brockman was a guest at South by Southwest, and in relation to his own experience as a computer scientist, he said that today ChatGPT can complete lines of code using a feature called Copilot. In the near future, he expects ChatGPT to be able to write complete functions and then become a software architect. The future predicted by Ian LeCun of Meta is instead already becoming a reality. With applications like Midjourney and Runaway AI, they use text prompts to create images and videos. Here are some of the early steps in these domains.
You can use similar techniques to generate images. So this is some work that happened a while back at FAIR by my colleagues. This was in early 2022. This was rolled out, and it's an autoregressive model that can generate images called Make a Scene. I'm not going to go into the details of how it's built, but essentially that system allows you to type descriptive text of an image, and then perhaps sketch a very simple sketch of what you want, and kind of label the elements of the sketch, and within a few seconds, the system, so it's a beautiful painting of a cactus, blah blah blah, in the desert, and after a while, the system generates an image. So there's been similar systems from OpenAI, one called DALL-E or DALL-E 2. Google has a system called Imagen. Make a Scene was a little earlier than that. They use different techniques. But it's going to be a big tool for people who want to be creative but don't have the techniques, the artistic training, essentially, to make things like that. And of course, that's very useful nowadays for the follow-up of this project. Is called Make a Video, and you can play with it at this website, makeavideo.studio, and you can type a sentence that describes a short snippet of video, and the system will generate something that more or less makes sense, that corresponds to your description.
What all speakers agree upon is the fact that running these models is very costly and energy consuming. And so the question is, does a company really need to have access to all the knowledge available out there? Wouldn't it be more effective to have a bot specializing in one specific domain only? Some larger financial companies like Citadel announced that they will integrate ChatGPT in their technology system to improve the work of programmers, but most likely also to make better investment decisions in the future. The same thing can be done by smaller companies, and there are solutions that are quietly entering the market, specifically for smaller companies. For example, while the world was playing around with ChatGPT, Stanford University quietly introduced Alpaca, a smaller language model that can be trained with fewer instructions specifically for limited domains. In the same category is OpenChatKit. This is an open-source language model that already has an active community working on its development. NVIDIA too has a model that can be tested now, and it allows to train a system with data provided by the company instead of with what is available on the internet. In particular, the application by NVIDIA is used to create avatars that can respond without hesitation to questions posed in many different languages. Some of these applications, like Alpaca, are not available for commercial use, but they represent a way for companies to start learning about these new management tools.